Wendy Williams was blackballed from the industry and called crazy simply because she refused to stay silent. Katt Williams just revealed exactly what the industry did to Wendy Williams and named everyone that he believes is next. Hollywood really is an industry built on intimidation and deception.
I infiltrate the Illuminati, find out what the fuck they got going on, get the information, run back to y'all, tell y'all everything I know. That's my motherfucking job. But I don't know how many more times I'm gonna be able to sneak in there. Thanks to Shannon Sharp and 90 million views, I can't sneak very often. So while I was in there this last time, knowing that my last report might be my last report, I went in there and I got information for everybody. Look at my white friends. Us too? That's right, white secrets.
Hollywood elites have tried to silence Katt multiple times. He was offered money, women, fame, and roles in some of the biggest movies ever released, but he said no. He knew that these offers came with strings attached, and he refused to sell his soul. In a recent interview with Theo Von, Katt said that he was shocked to see just how powerful Harvey Weinstein actually was. Allegedly, Weinstein offered Katt the opportunity to be with any actress he wanted. He would realize that Katt couldn't be bought. They blackballed him from the industry and misrepresented his character everywhere. Katt said that he lost contracts because he wasn't comfortable dressing up as a woman. This is how these elites control you. Once they've got you in a multi-million-dollar contract, they own you. You have to do exactly what they say. You don't get the worst part? When Katt refused to bend over for them, these elites came after his family and tried to take away his kids. Katt was labeled as a danger to his kids and had to fight in court for years just to be able to see his children again.
No, this is their 9th time coming to my house. The problem was this time they came to my office and took my kids from an office. Not from my house, from an office. So now when I can't have my kids at my office,
that's an issue.
I must be
the
most terrible black dude. Because here's the whole thing. You gonna charge me with child endangerment? After I adopted 7 children and had them for 14 years in this state? Really? You coming after my kids now? Because it was already a witch hunt. Now you want my babies? Yikes.
One person this story sounds eerily familiar to is Wendy Williams. Wendy spoke out about how a certain kind of people were taking over Hollywood and how producers like Diddy were forcing performers to act and be more feminine. Wendy was called crazy and forced to stay away from her kids, all because of an interview. In 2013, Wendy Williams opened up about the feminization of hip-hop. After giving her opinion on rappers' fashion choices, she pointed out that closeted gay men have always existed in rap, even in the 1980s. During the interview, Wendy Williams revealed that she had been fired for trying to reveal that Diddy was gay.
Right, well, Kanye had the kill, and then ASAP had the long dress.
Yeah.
Have you seen the ASAP picture?
Yeah, I'm not down with any of that. I mean, wouldn't be my man.
No?
No.
We brought in Lord Jamar from Brand New because he had made some comments about that.
What did he say?
Well, he talked about the whole feminization of hip hop culture from the 80s on.
I think he's taking the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, he talked about how when we were younger, you would wear an earring in your left ear, and that was considered straight, and the earring in your right ear, that'd be gay, and then at one point, people started wearing both earrings, and and
then they started wearing girl pants, and then they're wearing jeggings, and then, yes, it's very effeminized, but be very clear, there were lots of homosexuals in hip-hop back in the 80s, too, that was what's worse, hip-hop wearing skirts or hip-hop being closeted and having a plethora of kids to prove manhood that, and denial of something that you shouldn't have to deny, which is your sexuality. So I hear what Jamar is saying, but we come from a very homosexual era of hip-hop as well. There was a radio personality once upon a time. Her name was Wendy Williams, and she was practically burned at the stake for talking about such. And now it's all come full circle.
Soon after this interview, Wendy was allegedly diagnosed with dementia and cut off from Hollywood. She was even forced to live at a psychiatric facility, being force-fed drugs. just because she decided to expose Diddy for the person he really was. We're only now finding out that Wendy never had dementia in the first place, and all of this was done just to silence her.
A series of depositions that not only prove that she's being held against her will, but also threaten to dismantle the Hollywood paedophile ring's sinister web of coercion and control. We've got the tapes, and they're shocking. It's clear that Wendy is currently living in fear for her life. They're locking up a mentally stable woman who holds incriminating evidence against some of the world's most powerful people, and they're doing it in broad daylight in front of the entire world.
Wendy Williams is locked in a room in an assisted living facility in New York. That's her. The only way I could interview her was to have a camera in the street because we can't get a camera in. She can't really have any visitors. She cannot go outside. She's been out twice in the last 30 days. She has no internet. She, and I think rightly says, she feels like a prisoner.
Terms of Wendy's guardianship seem to be extreme. I've spoke to her several months ago, and she just sounds like the same Wendy. Yes, is she quirky? Sure. Is she eccentric? Sure. She always has been.
And now a new revelation. Her team says a new medical evaluation ordered by Wendy's court-appointed legal team finding she does not have frontotemporal dementia.
She does not have frontal lobar dementia. So that should be game, set, match.
Gene Deal, Diddy's ex-bodyguard, also confirmed that Diddy was the reason Wendy Williams was blackballed from Hollywood. It was never because of a false dementia diagnosis. These elites control the industry, and if you speak out against them, they'll destroy your family and your career. Wendy isn't allowed to leave the assisted care facility she has been forced to live in, and for the last 10 years has been forced to take sedatives every day.
See, what people don't understand about Puff is that he held the entertainment grip, especially for the people who was his former artists, in a chokehold. If you didn't do what he say do, if he didn't like you, you would never ever work for Bad Boy or anybody in the entertainment business again. He did it to Kirk Burroughs. You understand? He did it to Wendy Williams. He did it to a lot of people, bruh. So now her going back is just wanting to get food on her table, keep a roof over her head. Because nobody was probably telling her, yo, I can't work with you. I can't deal with you unless Puff say so. I'm not gonna work with you. I'm not gonna do anything because they didn't want to make him mad because he had enough power in the business to stop her.
When the industry realizes it can't control you, it cuts you off. Katt revealed that performers with contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars are labeled crazy, so the production company can walk out of the contract and not have to pay them. As soon as artists stop making money or trying to take back control, the executives are prepared to do whatever it takes to get rid of them.
In order for the type of ratings we need and attention to be on this thing. See, what I'm saying is, in business, nothing is coincidental, or you would be hearing who's losing money. In all of these situations, it's only the artist that's losing. Somebody makes big money. When these rappers get killed, not incidental. Somebody made $100 million and now don't have to talk to that artist or none of their crew, don't have to validate none of their contracts. Now only got to deal with the mama, only got to see her once a year, and it's over. And the money goes up and up and up. So they killed this $20 million guy, but they reaped $60 million in benefits.
Wow.
And they had some people from your city do it.
Wow.
I'm saying there's the good side and the bad side of these businesses.
But think about what you just think about what you just said. That's extremely thoughtful and powerful.
This is what happened to Dave Chappelle. Dave was silenced and cut out of his contract because of what he had to say, and because he couldn't be controlled. Dave Chappelle had a $500 million contract that he was cut out of and labeled as a drug addict. Whenever one performer goes down, someone else is benefiting from the situation. One tweet about the situation read, "It's wrong what happened to Dave." Too many good people having bad things happen to them, especially one as talented as Dave and kind-hearted. Crime against humanity.
If you say that But your
we
fans
take it
have a
another way.
difference of
We
opinion.
your fans. We think
I
you
can
cold.
prove my points.
Well, that's why I said your fans have a difference of opinion.
But Dave Chappelle was decapitated in front of us. And until we deal with that, until we deal with the fact that a devout Muslim who doesn't eat bacon was accused of being a crackhead, until we establish the fact that they said that he went to Africa to smoke cocaine when we know they don't have running water and food over there, when they don't have paved roads over there. You saying he flew past Chicago and Miami and LA and New York and Detroit. You saying he went past Cleveland and Fort Pierce, Florida, and he went past Okeechobee and Oakland. You
All
saying
the
he
way
went to
over
another
there.
country where
this
they're
is
not
smoke.
eating?
Right.
You talking about somebody who has a wife and children, 5 children, and lives on a farm, doesn't live here in Hollywood. You saying you convince people that person was an insane crackhead and he hasn't been on movies and TV for 8 years? Is that correct? Okay, then don't tell me about what you want to tell me about. I just watched you decapitate the king in front of me. And then act like he's supposed to catch up and be a regular comedian like everybody else. But no.
He didn't go for that.
That's not how it went. He was out there with us for 20 years. They called him Pilot Boy because he had 19 pilots in Hollywood and everybody passed on him and said his show wasn't worth it.
What do you think of
Then when he made $500 million, they said even though his contract said he should get half of it, they said he made too much for the contract to be valid, so we'll offer you 10% of what you made. You mean he made $500 million and they offered him 50? Yes. And he said, what do you think my fans are gonna say when they find out you offered me 10% of what I made you? And they said, your fans will believe that you're a crazy crackhead by the time you get home. And my nigga got on the flight in LA, and by the time he got to Ohio, it was so. And 8 years later, he hasn't been in a movie and or television. Is just now trying to do his real comeback at Radio City Music Hall.
Even back in 2017, almost a decade before anything related to Diddy came out, Katt Williams went on record and said that you have to sell your soul and integrity if you want to succeed in Hollywood. He said that the same producers who control the industry are using their roles to source young men and women for trafficking to other elites. He even named Diddy and Epstein as the two heads.
Everybody is a supplier. Epstein, Weinstein, like these guys knew what these extremists liked and provided it, and provided the way for you to to have $1 billion and not create a fantasy island type environment has not existed throughout history.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if I was going to run some global power organization, I would try to co-opt every single leader, try to offer support, bring them out to wherever the I have my big ass meetings, fly everybody in private jets, talk about the climate crisis.
All organizations have to follow the same rules.
Yeah. That's wild.
Recruitment is an important facet of all.
We have to get some young global leaders.
Well, understand this is the only reason that we can talk about these big Illuminati-like entities at this period of time. It's just because of time. Like, they aged out. Like, you can't get in new, so everybody got decrepit over there and they can't exchange, really.
All of this makes even more sense once you see that the recruiters who were working for Epstein have been allowed to get away. FBI files from the latest Epstein file release prove Epstein's top recruiter, Jean-Luc Brunel, who offered to flip and expose the entire trafficking ring for immunity. The DOJ completely ignored him to protect the elites until he was found dead in a prison.
And this is an FBI file that says one of Epstein's, it says what appears to say BFs, best friends perhaps, Jean-Luc Brunel has, quote, helped get girls. He is wanting to cooperate. And it goes on to discuss a plan for that and that he's hired a lawyer and how that would work. And so these are notes that date all the way back to to a period where Brunel was believed to have considered cooperating. If you haven't heard of him, if you haven't followed this case as closely, he's one of the key officials because he held himself out as a kind of modeling scout. He did, and that's debated over whether he was actually an alleged sex trafficker, but that was one of the tools they would use. He went into businesses that had arrangements with Epstein. He was on the flights a lot. So his name was one of those that had been around before.
We also know that the same doctors who labeled Wendy Williams as a dementia patient and Dave Chappelle as a drug addict were allegedly working for Epstein. The New York Times recently went through the Jeffrey Epstein files and found he had a network of doctors he was paying off all over the U.S. One young girl had a serious head injury and got 35 stitches on Epstein's dining room table. He would pay them with hundreds of thousands in donations, gifts, and support to their clinics like medical equipment. They shared the patient's private information with Jeffrey Epstein. What was particularly chilling about this story was how Mr. Epstein was able to corrupt an institution of medicine, which was supposed to be different. It gives you a sense of what else might be out there as we continue to dig through these files.
This is a photo taken in Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. It seems to show a doctor performing a medical procedure on Mr. Epstein's dining room table. We looked through about 15,000 records from the Epstein files to understand how Jeffrey Epstein cultivated and rewarded a small circle of doctors as a means of control over the women in his orbit. Mr. Epstein dictated when these women got plastic surgery, even when they went to the gynecologist. And he could also take medical care away. In some cases, you also see the doctors help Jeffrey Epstein maintain that control over these women's lives. Here's one really striking example. Jeffrey Epstein is flying back from his island in the Virgin Islands to New York with a young woman who has suffered a really serious injury. He reaches out to somebody named Eva Dubin, a former girlfriend of his, and the founder of the Dubin Breast Center at Mount Sinai. And he says, this woman fell off the ATV and needs stitches in her forehead. Can you organize? She responds, okay, Jess Ting, plastic surgeon at Mount Sinai, is standing by. Call me as soon as you land. And then you see the next day from Jeffrey Epstein, Dr. Ting put 35 stitches in her head, laid out on the dining room table. And that brings us back to this photo, which appears to be of Dr. Ting. Dr. Ting declined comment on this photo. When we talked to medical experts, they said, there's no way you do this if you were putting the patient's needs first. If you were doing that, you just take her to the hospital. There's much more equipment, there's many more people, the risk of infection is lower. But the only reason you do this is if you were putting somebody else's needs first.
One of the country's most prominent physicians is in the Epstein files, and the emails look pretty damning. Dr. Peter Attia is a longevity doctor who is a New York Times bestselling author and the host of a popular podcast. Here's an alleged email from Dr. Peter Attia to Leslie Groff, who was one of Epstein's assistants. And it says, no, thank you so much. See you next time. Hopefully JE in town when I'm back in 2 weeks. I go into JE withdrawal when I don't see him. And this email apparently between Dr. Attia and Jeffrey Epstein with the subject, got a fresh shipment. You the biggest problem with becoming friends with you? The life you lead is so outrageous and yet I can't tell a soul. To which Jeffrey E. replies, "'Fraid not." And there's another email with language that I don't want to share with you here today that is just not good. One person is reporting that there are 175 pages of documents with Dr. Attia in the Epstein files. Now, I don't know Dr. Attia, I've never met him, but I did not have this on my 2026 bingo card.
Another name that Katt mentioned was industry veteran Chris Tucker. At one point, Katt Williams used to respect Chris Tucker. Chris said no to the biggest role in his career because he didn't want to promote a negative image of black men to kids. After this, Chris was manipulated and forced by the elites to do their bidding. These photos showed Chris Tucker on the Lolita Express surrounded by young girls. Allegedly, Chris Tucker went to Africa on what was called a humanitarian mission with Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Clinton, and Kevin Spacey by flying on Epstein's jet on September 2nd, 2002.
You knew Jeffrey Epstein, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. We flew Bill Clinton and a lot of different. That was a humanitarian trip to Africa, and I met him on that trip because it was his plane. I didn't know who plane we was getting on, but it was a whole bunch of dignitary people. We was with a delegation, and I met him, and you don't know people what they do in their private lives, so. Yeah.
But tell me this, Chris. You was on this private plane, and you could tell that it was a private plane because they called it, was it Lolita Express?
Oh yeah, it was a private plane. Yes. Oh yes.
But wait a minute. You didn't never go to that island, did you?
No.
Just being on Epstein's plane doesn't prove wrongdoing, but it is incredibly suspicious, especially after you hear what the victims had to say about what went on in that plane. In a 2015 Inside Edition interview, a former flight attendant on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet admits that young girls were always on board. The jet carried some of the most powerful people on Earth. Keep in mind that flight attendants and crew members all testified that girls were present on the flight with Chris Tucker.
Wealth was so vast, you know, the fact that he had this fleet of planes. We've heard a lot about the Lolita Express. What happened on the Lolita Express?
Everything that happened on the Lolita Express and his other planes was the same thing that happened in his bedrooms and the massage rooms, on the beach, wherever we were. They did not stop because we're in the air. 95% of the time, there was always sex involved. Jeffrey couldn't take a 2-hour flight without having to ejaculate. Like, that's how sick this man was.
How did you live every day? How did you get on board that plane? How did you live knowing you're going off to New York or to the island or to wherever you were about to be trafficked to? You must have been a ball of dread and anxiety.
I was horrified, I was sad, I was angry, I was disgusted. I was a shell, and the only way that I could cope with what I was going through was, taking Xanax. And Xanax is like an anti-anxiety tablet, but it also, it took away that feeling of anger, sadness. It made me feel numb. It was a numbing tablet, and it helped me cope with what was going on at the time. It took a lot of people involved. It took doctors, psychiatrists, gynecologists, dentists. All these people knew what was going on.
Any other names together. The police are out on stage, they cut to commercial, you didn't see what happened. By the time they come out, people have been removed, it goes on. It's certain ways things are handled when it's not intentional. When things go smoothly, but they seem chaotic, that means there was forethought and a plan. Somebody, even if it looks like, Janet Jackson just had a wardrobe malfunction. There's no such thing.
Correct.
I don't care who you blame.
I believe that.
Somebody benefited. Yeah. So in all of these situations, there's a business involved and there's real money involved, and somebody's benefiting from this thing that looks like, oh, that just happened. Nah, no way. No way.
All of this is why Dave Chappelle walked away from the money. He even went on Oprah later and explained his thought process. Dave Chappelle actually explained this perfectly with what he called the salt trap. He said a baboon gets trapped because it won't let go of the salt it grabbed, even when that's the only thing keeping it stuck. And for Dave, that salt was the money, the fame, and the deal. The difference is he let go.
Comedian Dave Chappelle left tens of millions of dollars on the table when he walked away from his popular Comedy Central show. A lot of people wondered, what the hell was he thinking? That's a quote. Chappelle says he had...
Whether he was thinking.
Or whether he was thinking. A lot of people ask that question. Chappelle says he had a crisis of conscience and stood up for his integrity as an artist. He explained to us how stepping out of the spotlight helped him avoid getting caught in a trap.
It's so much bigger than money, though, Dave. It's so much bigger than money.
Oh, no, it was bigger than money. But you know what? I watched one of these nature shows one time, and they were talking about how a bushman finds water when it's scarce. Mm-hmm. And they do what's called a salt trap. I didn't know this. Apparently, baboons love salt.
Okay.
So they put a lump of salt in a hole, and they wait for the baboon. The baboon comes, sticks his hand in the hole, grabs the salt. Salt makes his hand bigger, and he's trapped. He can't get his hand out. Now, if he's smart, all he does is let go of the salt. Baboon doesn't want to let go of the salt. Then the bushman just comes, takes the baboon, throws him in the cage, and gives him all the salt he wants. And then the baboon gets thirsty. The bushman lets him out the cage. The first place the baboon runs to is water. The bushman follows him, and they both drink to their fill. And in that analogy, I felt like the baboon. But I was smart enough to let go of the salt.
Isn't that a great analogy?
What an analogy.
I know. He's very, very thoughtful and very, very smart.
If everything Katt Williams is saying even scratches the surface of the truth, then this isn't just about a few celebrities. It's about how power actually works behind the scenes. Who gets protected, who gets silenced, and who gets labeled crazy the moment they stop playing along. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. These stories evolve fast, and we'll be tracking every new development as it unfolds. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this is a coincidence? Or is there something bigger going on here?